She wore the watch every day thinking it was a birthday gift from her loving husband, but in just 2 weeks, it nearly took her life. She never imagined that something strapped to her wrist would unravel a dark past and land someone behind bars. Welcome to Storytelling and Beyond, where every story reveals a truth that stirs the soul. If you're moved by stories of suspense, emotion, and the unexpected strength of the human spirit, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share our channel. Claire had always been the quiet one in her circle of friends, the dependable teacher, the devoted wife, the kind neighbor who watered your plants when you were away. She lived in a modest home on the edge of Charleston with her husband, Thomas, a well-dressed man who worked in corporate finance. Their marriage wasn't perfect, but Claire had always thought it was at least solid until the day he handed her a gift wrapped in silver paper with a red ribbon. It was her 32nd birthday. Thomas rarely gave presents. He said he believed more in experiences than objects. But that morning, he looked strangely excited as he slid the box across the table. Claire chuckled, thinking it was a book or maybe one of his usual gift card inside a funny card jokes. But when she opened it, her breath caught. Inside was a stunning gold wristwatch, delicate yet elegant. Its face was pearl white with tiny diamond-like stones at the hour marks. The brand was expensive, something Claire would never dream of owning, let alone expecting as a gift. "I thought it was time you had something nice," Thomas said, avoiding her eyes as he sipped his coffee. Claire reached across the table and hugged him, genuinely touched. Maybe, she thought, he was finally seeing her. Finally appreciating her. She wore it every day. But just a few days after slipping it onto her wrist, Claire began to feel off. It started with mild headaches that grew stronger by the day. Then the dizziness began. Random spells that hit her in the grocery store or walking up the school stairs. Once, while supervising the lunch line, she nearly blacked out. Her vision blurred. The world spun. She clutched a table to steady herself as the kids looked at her with concern. She booked appointments with her doctor. Then a neurologist. Then a cardiologist. The tests all came back clear. No abnormalities, the neurologist said, handing her a file. Blood works clean. Brain scans are fine. Maybe it's stress? But Claire didn't feel stressed. She felt watched. Trapped. Every night, Thomas came home later. He claimed work had become more demanding. When she asked questions, he brushed them off. When she tried to share her health concerns, he nodded absently but never engaged. One night, Claire found him in the garage on the phone, whispering urgently. When she entered, he quickly ended the call. "Just work stuff," he mumbled, not meeting her eyes. Her instincts flared. Something wasn't right. Days later, while removing the watch before bed, something she rarely did, she noticed something strange. The inner rim of the watch's backplate had a small groove. Curious, she examined it with a magnifying glass and saw what looked like a tiny pinhole. Could it be a defect? Or something else? The next morning, instead of heading to school, she took the watch to a local pawn shop, one tucked away in a side street she rarely passed. The shop owner, a man in his 60s with thick glasses and sun-spotted hands, greeted her kindly. "I just want to know if it's real gold," Claire said. He took the watch, flipped it over with practiced hands, and froze. Claire noticed the change instantly. His friendly expression drained. His eyes widened as he stared at the back of the watch. "Who gave you this?" he asked, his voice quiet and shaky. "My husband." "Birthday gift," she replied, heart starting to race. The man looked up sharply. "You need to go to the police. Now." Claire blinked. "What? Why?" He took a step back, as if the watch had burned him. This watch was reported in a missing persons investigation 2 years ago. The woman who wore it, Lydia Prescott, never came home. The case went cold. But this is her watch. The serial number. The engraving on the underside. It's all exact. Claire felt like the air had been sucked from the room. She stumbled back from the counter, suddenly aware of every dizzy spell, every fainting episode, every moment Thomas brushed off her pain. The watch wasn't a gift. It was a trap. And somehow, it was tied to a woman who had vanished. Claire clutched her purse and rushed out of the shop. She wasn't just going to the police. She was about to uncover a truth that would shatter everything she thought she knew about her husband, her marriage, and the life she thought was safe. Claire sat in the police precinct, her hands trembling as she stared at the styrofoam cup of lukewarm coffee before her. The detective, a lean, tired-eyed man named Detective Rayner, had been flipping through files for the past 20 minutes. He occasionally looked up, his gaze sharp and questioning, as though he was assessing how much she truly knew or didn't know. "So your husband gave you the watch 2 weeks ago," he said finally, closing the folder with a quiet snap. "And you've been feeling ill ever since?" Claire nodded. "Headaches. Dizziness. Fatigue. But nothing showed up on any tests. I didn't think it could be the watch until," her voice broke slightly, "until the pawn shop owner recognized it." Rayner leaned forward. "Claire, the woman this watch belonged to, Lydia Prescott, was declared missing 20 months ago. She was last seen leaving her office late at night. No forced entry at her apartment. No financial activity after the date she disappeared. And now her watch shows up on your wrist, given by your husband." Claire blinked slowly. "But Thomas would never." "Wouldn't he?" Rayner interjected. "Does your husband have any ties to Lydia? Business links, mutual acquaintances, same building?" Claire's voice faltered. "I don't know." Rayner handed her a printed photo. "This is Lydia. Do you recognize her?" Claire studied the image. A blonde woman in her late 20s, bright eyes, confident smile. Something tugged at the back of Claire's memory. She'd seen that face. Not in person, but... She was in one of Thomas's old finance magazines, Claire murmured. A feature article. She ran a tech startup, I think. Thomas had it lying around months ago. Rayner's expression tightened. She did run a startup. She also had a business dinner scheduled with your husband the night she disappeared. According to her assistant, it was at his request. The words hit Claire like a slap. She slumped back in the chair, heart pounding. "Why didn't anyone tell me this before?" "We didn't have the watch before," Rayner said. "Until now, your husband was just another business associate." Claire's thoughts spiraled. The man she'd married, the man she thought she knew, was now linked to a missing woman. A woman whose belongings were now somehow in Claire's possession. And worse, there was something deeper about the watch she hadn't shared yet. With trembling hands, Claire reached into her purse and pulled it out. She handed it to Rayner, but pointed at the pinhole she had noticed before. "There's something inside," she whispered. "Something more than just metal and gears." Rayner raised an eyebrow, then turned to the tech unit. Moments later, a small toolkit was brought in, and under the careful hands of a forensics officer, the back of the watch was removed. What they found inside froze everyone in the room. A microchip. Not part of the watch's normal functioning. Something separate. Hidden. The officer looked up. "It's a GPS tracker." Rayner's face turned grim. "Your husband has been tracking your movements." Claire went numb. This wasn't just about Lydia Prescott anymore. Her marriage was a facade. Rayner stood. "We need to search your home. Now. And we need to find your husband before he finds out that you know." Claire nodded slowly, her breath shallow. The walls of her perfect life were crumbling. Every birthday dinner, every affectionate gesture, every mundane Tuesday morning now seemed drenched in sinister shadow. She had been sleeping beside a man capable of secrets deep enough to bury someone. And maybe, just maybe, he planned to bury her too. Claire stood at the edge of her walk-in closet, staring blankly at the row of neatly pressed suits that hung like silent witnesses. The closet was Thomas's sanctuary, meticulously organized, always lavender-scented, with no trace of chaos. But today, Claire wasn't looking for order. She was looking for answers. Detective Rayner and two officers were combing through the mansion with search warrants in hand. Their presence turned the elegant silence of her home into a field of unease. Every open drawer, every turned-over pillowcase made Claire realize how little she actually knew about the man she had called her husband for 6 years. "In here," she whispered, beckoning Rayner into the closet. He looked at her, questioning. "There's a floor safe behind the mirror," she said. "Thomas always thought I didn't know." With a nod, one of the officers carefully pried the mirror loose, revealing a black biometric safe embedded in the wall. Claire stared at the fingerprint scanner. She hesitated. Then, to everyone's surprise, placed her thumb on the reader. A soft click. The safe unlocked. "You knew the code?" Rayner asked quietly. "No," she said, voice brittle. "He used to open it when he thought I was asleep. I memorized the sound pattern of the buttons. I practiced on a calculator for weeks. Just in case." Inside, there were 3 neatly arranged stacks, documents, hard drives, and a sealed velvet pouch. Rayner reached for the pouch first and gently opened it. Out slid another watch. Identical in make and model to the one Claire had been gifted. But this one had blood stains near the clasp. Claire recoiled. The room fell into a thick silence. Rayner moved to the documents. There were financial records, but they weren't related to Thomas's known businesses. They detailed shell companies, cash transfers, and most chillingly, large payments made to unidentified recipients around the time Lydia Prescott had disappeared. Then, the hard drives. Claire noticed a label on one, for insurance, LP. Rayner exchanged a glance with his team and ordered it bagged for urgent digital forensics. Claire stepped back, dizzy. The realization hit like a thunderbolt. The watch wasn't just a token. It was a threat. A reminder. A method of control. A chilling whisper from a man who masked evil behind charm and a tailored suit. One of the officers stepped outside the closet, pressing his earpiece. Then he turned to Rayner. "Sir, we've located Thomas. Surveillance spotted him pulling into a private airstrip 15 minutes ago. He's trying to flee." Claire's stomach dropped. Rayner didn't waste a second. "Send a unit. Lock down the airport. We need him in custody now." Claire gripped the doorframe, nausea rising in her throat. Why would he run if he's innocent? Rayner didn't answer. He didn't need to. Claire already knew. Her husband hadn't just lied. He hadn't just cheated. He had destroyed a life, and was ready to destroy another. As the team packed up the evidence, Claire's eyes landed on the second watch again. This time, she noticed something else, a tiny inscription on the inside of the strap. LP, keep breathing. It wasn't a threat. It was a message. A cry for help. And now, 2 years too late, Claire realized she may have been the only person left who could make sure that voice was finally heard. Claire sat quietly on the cold bench outside the courtroom, the faded wooden armrest pressing into her side. Her palms were clammy, her breath shallow, but her eyes were resolute. She clutched the old watch in her hand, not the one Thomas had given her, but the other one, the one stained with silence and hidden truths. The one engraved with LP, keep breathing. The courtroom door creaked open behind her. "Mrs. Morgan," the bailiff said gently. She stood slowly, the ache of the past few weeks heavy in her bones. The moment she entered the room, the buzzing murmurs fell to a hush. All eyes turned to her, the woman who had uncovered a scandal so layered in deceit it had rocked the city. Thomas sat at the defendant's table, his once polished demeanor now disheveled. Gone was the sleek confidence, the smug smirk. In its place was a pale, tight-jawed man who wouldn't even look her in the eye. Claire stepped onto the witness stand, the courtroom light casting a soft glow on her pale face. The prosecutor approached. "Claire, can you tell the court how you came into possession of this watch?" She held it up, her hand trembling only slightly. "My husband gave me a similar watch for my birthday. But I discovered this one locked away in his private safe. It's the same model." But this one had traces of blood and an inscription. The prosecutor nodded. "And what did you do when you found it?" "I went to the pawn shop first," she replied. I didn't know what else to do." That's when the owner saw it and turned pale. He recognized it. It belonged to Lydia Prescott. A quiet gasp moved through the courtroom. Claire continued, steady now. "Lydia was an intern at Thomas's company. She went missing 2 years ago. Her case went cold. But this watch brought everything back to life." She recounted every detail: the strange illnesses, the tracking chip, the discovery of hidden files, the fingerprints on the second watch matching both Thomas and Lydia. The defense attorney objected more than once, but the evidence was stacked too high, too precisely. Then came the moment Claire never thought she'd witness. The surveillance footage. Projected onto a large screen, it showed Thomas sneaking into Lydia's apartment the night she disappeared. He thought the cameras were disabled. He was wrong. Claire couldn't watch. She closed her eyes and held her breath until the prosecutor called her name again. "And what would you say to Lydia's family, if they were here now?" Claire blinked away tears. "I would say I'm sorry. That I didn't see it sooner. That I wore this." She held up the birthday watch, without knowing what it represented. "But I promise. I won't let her story be silenced." A tear rolled down her cheek, but she stood tall. The judge leaned forward. "Based on the evidence presented, and the witness testimony, this court finds probable cause to move forward with criminal charges against Thomas Morgan for the abduction and suspected murder of Lydia Prescott." The gavel struck. Thomas's head dropped like it weighed 100 pounds. Claire felt a wave crash through her, a strange, sorrowful peace. She walked slowly out of the courtroom, the watch still in her hand. Outside, the sky was a dull gray, clouds heavy with unshed rain. A small crowd had gathered. Reporters called her name, but she walked past them, silent. At the street corner, a young woman approached her, no more than 22, with tearful eyes. "I'm Lydia's cousin," she whispered. "Thank you for not staying silent." Claire nodded and pressed the blood-stained watch into her hand. "She asked someone to keep breathing," she said. Now it's time her story could finally rest. And as Claire walked away into the stormy dusk, her reflection in the pawn shop window across the street showed a woman no longer in mourning, but in quiet, hard-earned strength. This was not the ending she had imagined. But maybe, just maybe, it was the beginning of justice. Thank you for watching this story on Storytelling and Beyond. If this powerful tale moved you, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more heart-touching stories that matter.